Choosing a new road bike these days comes down to making a choice between lightweight and aerodynamics. But how lightweight does a bike have to be classed as lightweight? Well, if your Swiss brand BMC is this, the brand new 5th generation Teammachine SLR 01, which weighs on my scales with SRAM red axis and DT Swiss wheels 6.7 kilos. So below the UCI weight limit, but not truly lightweight. That Specialized S-Works Athos I rode a few days ago, linked to that review above in case you missed it, is 6.1 kilos. And Cervelo and Scott also make bikes lighter than the one we have here. But weight isn't everything, and in BMC's defense, they say, their words not mine, I'm quoting here, that the new Teammachine SLR 01 is one of the lightest and most aerodynamic bikes in its class. And the choice of lightweight or aerodynamic is a tricky one these days because some brands are trying to make their aero bikes lightweight and do one bike that can do both. The Specialized Tarmac S8 springs to mind as an example, and a bike that weighs the same as this one here, but is likely much more aero than the Teammachine SLR 01. Meanwhile, brands like BMC are sticking to a lightweight bike, this one here, and an aero bike, the Teammachine R, which I reviewed about 12 months ago. Link to that review down below in case you missed it. And that bike, with the same group set, but deeper section wheels, weighed 7.3 kilos on my scales. So aero and 7.3 kilos, or lightweight and 6.7 kilos. It's a tricky one. Is there enough in the bike to justify it over that more aero bike, or does this bike have enough redeeming factors to make it a viable choice? So to find out, for the last few weeks, I've been riding on my local roads and around the Just Ride Bike test track to discover what this bike is all about. So let's dive in and have a closer look. This is a 5th generation BMC Teammachine SLR, and I'll reveal a secret. I've always liked the Teammachine, going back 10 plus years, being one of my favourite bikes, probably in my top 10 of all time. The performance, the geometry, the ride quality and the looks always been distinctive with those angular junctions. But over the years, with every new bike, the distinctive looks have softened a bit, but I think it's still unmistakably a BMC. And a new version is all about saving weight, and they claim to have reduced the weight of the frame, the fork and the seat post by a rather whopping 222 grams. So big weight saving from a frame that was already pretty lightweight. I can see visually how much slimmer and more slender the tube profiles are. The weight saved gives a frame weight of a claimed 700 grams for a size 54. So a 56, I guess, is probably 750 grams, I guess. Most bike brands quote the 56 as a frame weight, but BMC have been a bit sneaky there in quoting a 54 centimeter frame. And that's heavier than the sub 600 grams for a Specialized Athos S-Works for a size 56. So I think the weight is similar to a Cervelo R5 off the top of my head. So yeah, light, but not crazy light. The bike does redeem itself by being rather aero, not loads of aero, but some aero. There's an influence from the Teammachine R, the company's aero road bike with the mad halo fork developed with the Red Bull F1 team, not the team itself, but the offshoot where they hire out the engineering expertise. So we have this slimmer head tube, slimmer fork blades to reduce the frontal surface area, which is so important for aerodynamics, and a down tube, the new Aero seat post, and the one-piece handlebar and stems. And they claim it's 2.2% more aero than the old Teammachine SLR, and only 4% slower than the Teammachine R Aero road bike. But what that actually means, I have no idea. But I'll do a lap of the Just Ride Bike test track later in today's video to see how it stacks up compared to that Teammachine R and some other bikes like the Tarmac and the Aero. For pricing, you're looking at a range starting from a rather eye-watering $8,500 or euros, which is quite a steep opening price for the SLR 01, and goes up to 13,000 euros stroke dollars for the top of the range bike I have here. SRAM Red axis, DT Swiss 1100 die-cut wheels with 180 hubs for that 6.7 kilo weight for a size 56. There is Durace available as well if you want it. And I'm sure there will be cheaper models lower down the range with the SLR 02 and 04. New road bikes are very expensive these days, but there is a way to avoid the high prices, and that's by buying a certified pre-owned bike with today's sponsor, Cycle Limited. And I know from personal experience that buying a second-hand road bike can be a great way to get an absolute bargain, but the process is not easy and there's plenty of risk attached to buying a second-hand road bike, a risk that buying through Cycle Limited completely avoids. Because every bike is owned and photographed by Cycle Limited, not just listed on some random marketplace, and that means when you see a bike on their website, it's actually sitting in their warehouse and ready to ship to you. And shipping is fast and secure. They send your bike within 1 day of ordering, and it's safely packed in the box and needing only minimal assembly. Plus, you get a 14-day no-hassle return window, so you can buy with total confidence. How good does that sound? And if you ever need advice, their team of riders is just a call or email away. And the bikes are priced by actual human beings, not some algorithm behind the scenes, taking into account upgrades and wear and tear to get the best and most accurate offer every single time. So, if you're on the hunt for your next dream bike at a killer price, make sure to check out Cycle Limited at their website linked down below. Right, let's find out how the new BMC Teammachine actually rides and performs.
It may not be the lightest bike in the world and quite a bit heavier than that Specialized Athos I rode very recently, but it's still light. It's not heavy at all, and you feel that lack of weight from the first moment you get on it, and the first few pedal strokes down the road feel tremendous. Just feels like no effort is required to ride along the road at all. Just feels so easy, just feels fantastic. And it has a very similar lively ride manner with fast steering, that nimbleness and agile keenness on the climbs that the Athos displayed too. But I think the BMC is definitely a stiffer platform when you are really stamping on the pedals on a steep climb. Not that the Athos is flexing, but it doesn't quite feel as stiff and taut under your pedals. It has a punchier, firmer character when you are really stamping on the pedals up a 25% gradient than the Specialized Athos.
And to find out how the BMC performed around the Just Ride Bike test track, I did a lap in recent sunny conditions, about 17 degrees with no wind at all, and riding at an average speed of 32 kilometers per hour, so 20 miles per hour, and maintaining the same position on the hoods and trying to remove as many variables as possible, the bike recorded an average power of 194 watts, which places it mid-table, below the Canyon Aero and the BMC Teammachine R and the Specialized Tarmac Pro, but above the Giant TCR Advanced Pro, the Seeker Spear and the Van Rysel RCR Pro, showing that in my real world testing, admittedly not the most scientific test in the world because the real world and all those pesky variables, that the bike is actually pretty fast and does perform very well when it comes to other bikes in this space and outside in the more aero focused categories like the Aero and the Teammachine R. So not a slow bike around a rolling circuit with climb, descents and corners, and definitely a bike that has that all-round appeal like the Giant TCR and like the Specialized Tarmac SL8.
I've also been impressed with the comfort and smoothness of the bike too, and it does remind me the most of the Giant TCR Advanced Pro. So pretty smooth on most roads. There's a rough section I ride on my test track, and there's definitely a bit of feedback through the handlebars and through the saddle and through the pedals. It's not uncomfortable. I've been riding the bike every day for the last few weeks, and yeah, it's an easy bike to live with. Not endurance bike level of comfort, but I reckon stick a 30 on there and it'd be pretty handsome indeed. So yeah, smooth enough, not the smoothest, but on a smooth bit of tarmac, yeah, absolutely rips along really well. It's a shame my roads aren't all as smooth as this one here. Look at that, lovely that is. But there are some likes and dislikes that I've discovered after living with a bike for the last few weeks.
The first one, well, the weight isn't as low as it possibly could be, and there are a few areas where weight could be saved. Like, for example, metal rails on a saddle, and the wheels, the DT Swiss 1100 wheels, aren't the lightest in the world either. Claim weight is about 1300 grams, but there are wheels out there that are 1100 grams. So I think there is potential in the bike and the build to go lighter and get closer to 6.5 kilos without too much effort. But on a bike costing this much, it should be as light as possible, you think. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect it to be as light as possible. The other one is tyre clearance. Now, tyre clearance is up to 32, which is in line with other race bikes right now. But BMC says the bike has been optimised around a 26mm wide tyre, which is, I mean, who's racing a 26 tyre these days? These are 28s fitted as standard, and yes, they are back to front, not me, how the bike came. But most people are racing 28s, 30s, even 32s, and some bikes like a new Aeros, the MV Melee, go up to 35 clearance. So I know it's a race bike designed for racing, but for us non-racing enthusiasts who love riding race bikes that are lightweight like this, boosting clearance up to 34, 35, and optimizing the tyre setting around a 28 or a 30, not a 26. So that's a bit odd. The other, not dislike as such, but the other thing worth mentioning is the seat clamp. It's a metal plate that pushes against the seat post and a 2 3mm bolts here with a max torque setting of 3 Nm, so very low. It works fine. I've had no issues with the seat post slipping at all, but just worth mentioning as it's something to be careful with when you are building a bike up yourself at home, and definitely use a torque wrench. And lastly, not really a dislike, I quite like it actually, it's the geometry. So the geometry is race bike, just like their Teammachine R race bike. So pros can jump between both bikes and have that same geometry, the same performance handling they expect. And I like the way a race bike rides, the low stack, the long reach. But it's interesting how Specialized have relaxed the Aeros and made the stack higher. It does raise a rather interesting question, to me anyway, I think it's interesting, of whether manufacturers of lightweight bikes like this should move their attention away from what the pros need, because they need aero these days, and they can't really race a bike as lightweight due to the UCI weight limit of 6.8 kilos. So instead shift their focus for bikes like this to us, real world, regular cyclists who aren't constrained by the UCI rules, but still enjoy the way a lightweight bike rides and could have a bike that weighs 6 kilos with no issue of the UCI coming along with their clipboard and telling you off for having a lightweight bike. So, time for my verdict on the BMC Teammachine SLR 01. And to answer the question and the title of today's video, who is the bike for? And that's really the question I try to grapple with my time on the bike, because it's clearly not a pure lightweight climbing only bike like the Aeros and the Cervelo R5. They are way lighter. So if you care about weight, you are weight winny and you want the lightest bike, the Teammachine doesn't really do it. It's not super lightweight. But it's a bike that performs well where you're not just climbing and has more speed more useful speed than the Aethos when you are on flat roads, you're really chasing along in a bunch or a group ride, a chain gang, or really trying to set a good average power, average speed on that bike. There's clearly more aero on offer from the frame compared to the Aethos, and around my test track, it's as fast as some other bikes, including the Specialized Tarmac SL8. But if you don't care about max aero, don't like nose cone on the tarmac, I think the Teammachine SLR still has a lot going for it. A shame it's not lighter. I think if it's down to 6.5 kilos, it would be an easier recommendation. But right now, it's in a strange area between bikes that are much lighter, if you care about weight and climbing performance, and bikes that are more aero, but not much heavier, like a tarmac and some of the sort of low 7 kilo aero bikes like Canyon Aero, Trek-Madone. So an interesting choice, which leads me to conclude that the BMC Teammachine SLR01 is a bike worth considering. And if you haven't seen my review of the brand new Mark II Specialized Aethos yet, then watch this video right up here.